Well, I'm making this video to address a couple of things. Those are my neighbor's dogs barking in the background. So bear with them. I want to talk about liberals and the NRA because there's a lot of misinformation being spread. The NRA is one of our oldest and most well-established firearms associations. They do a lot of work with research. They do a lot of work with education and training. They do a lot of work in politics. These guys will go to Washington and our state capitals and sit down with legislatures and lawmakers and try to come up with real solutions to problems. Yes, I'm a member of the NRA. I actually hold instructor's credentials through the NRA, which are recognized in all 50 states. I can go to any state in the United States and teach in any discipline I'm certified in. Be it NRA rifle, pistol, shotgun, self-defense inside the home, self-defense outside the home. I'm basically certified to teach everything except black powder and hand loading commercially. Now, if you're a friend of mine and you know me, I'll be happy to teach you how to use a black powder gun, how to clean it, how to maintain it, how to load it, how to shoot it. And I'll be happy to teach you how to load your own ammunition. The reason that I don't teach things commercially is because I know people and there's a lot of liability in these two disciplines. And if I tell somebody, hey, you can safely load this cartridge with this bullet to 1,000 feet a second, somebody's going to say, well, let me bump it to 1,100, which may or may not be safe. When you donate money to the NRA, that money goes towards youth education programs. It goes towards political activism, protecting your Second Amendment rights. And it goes towards one of our nation's oldest sporting societies. Guess what? Long before the NRA had to get political, you could actually read one of their magazines and you got a lot of good information and a lot of research done by shooters. People who had worked up ideas, that had worked within the industry for new products. And you could find out, hey, is it good or is it not so good? The NRA's been around a long time. The interesting thing with the liberals is they try to paint the NRA in a bad light. I have had exactly one liberal friend so far. And a man worked with me in the prison system. And he's kind of an oddball because he's a liberal that supports the Second Amendment. And that's our right to keep and bear arms. He's actually accepted my invitation on a couple of occasions to get out on the range and shoot with me. And we've shot Glock pistols with standard capacity magazines. That's more than 10. We've shot revolvers. We have shot other versions of semi-automatic guns. We got out on one occasion. He brought his father and a friend of theirs down to the camp, and we shot some clays, and we had a good time. I've got one other friend of mine that I've been knowing for about 30 years. Me and him were discussing online some stuff with the firearms, and he said, I'd be happy to come to one of your classes because I know it's going to be taught right. Okay, that's two people. And we're in the process of getting the dates and all worked out for that. That class will be held in Jacksonville. Right now it looks like March 18th at 11 a.m. Most other liberals want to tell me, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I've got 13 years in law enforcement. Yes, in Florida, working for the Department of Corrections is considered law enforcement. I've been a competitive shooter 20 years. That's right, 2-0. Fat boy's getting some age on him. I've hunted all my life. And I've got a bunch of other qualifications that I'll be happy to share with people if they want to know. Some of them get to be, from some standpoints, quite fascinating. At least some people think so. I also hold master gunsmithing certifications. Instructor certifications. I'm not new to this game. The interesting thing with our liberal hippies is they live in a dream world. They believe that they can go online and half-ass research something and have some kind of answer to a legal question. I'm going to tell you this, I wouldn't go in a courtroom anywhere with this bullshit research. Those are typical of your liberals. They go and they look up things and they only look for things that support their cause. I had one the other night on the internet wanting to tell me that the federal laws didn't apply to them in their state. Yes, they do. They apply in every state. I've had people say, well, you don't need an AR-15. Well, that's not your place to say. If I want one, what keeps me from buying one? You know, high-capacity magazines, as they term them. Well, most of them have no experience with firearms. The interesting thing is a lot of these people are college educated. I'm not saying every one of them, but most are. They want to mandate training. Well, who's qualified to do that training? You that know nothing about firearms? That's the blind leading the blind. I don't see where that makes any sense. I'm going to go to somebody that knows nothing about a subject and hope to learn something from them? No, that doesn't make good sense. I'm going to seek out knowledgeable people that know what they're doing and know what they're talking about and learn what I can from them. That's the way I do things. I mean, that's just how I roll. You know, that's an interesting thing. Another double standard. They believe that it's all right to protest and riot in the streets. This is the liberals. Walk around naked. Do all kinds of weird things. And they have a problem with me making a donation to the NRA with somebody that actually is going to go sit down with my legislator and be able to talk to them and discuss an issue like a human being. That's really weird to me. Whenever I tell a liberal, hey, that's not the way the gun business works. That's, you know, they keep saying they want background checks. We've had those for 25 years or better. They said, well, the system isn't working. What's your damn system? No damn wonder. And they want to tell me, well, you don't know what you're talking about. When was the last time a liberal hippie was in a gun store? When have they bought a firearm? When have they said, hey, you know, what have I got to do to acquire a firearm? None of them want to answer that because they haven't been in one. You know, I see knee-jerk reactions. People say, well, how can you own a gun and watch kids get massacred? Well, let me explain this. I'm not going to own a gun and simply stand by and watch somebody get hurt. I'm not going to own a gun and stand by and watch somebody get killed. I'm not going to do that if I have nothing more on me than me and a pair of shorts. I'm going to do what I have to do to secure somebody else's safety or my own safety. Another flaw in liberal logic is this. They point their finger and they say, they ought to, they ought to, they ought to. Who's they? Who's this magic they keep talking about? You want somebody else to do something where hopefully you don't have to. That means you can do nothing but sit around and, I guess hippies still smoke pot. You know, whatever the hell you do. You want an absolute safe world, but you're not willing to do anything to make it absolute safe, except write on the internet. Maybe walk out in the street and hold some signs. Most of the time you've gotten too damn lazy to do that. Most hippies can't have a legitimate conversation with somebody of an opposing point of view without having to degenerate the name calling. And their favorite one is, you're a racist. I can tell them, hey, I'm going fishing today. Well, you're a racist. No, I'm not a racist. I've got my fishing rod in the back of my truck. I'm going to the river. You know, that's unfortunately become a lot of people's excuse for everything. Well, you're a racist. Okay. How does that make me a racist? They can't do much except resort to name calling. And most of the time, you know, they don't even know what the hell name they're calling them. But if I make a donation to the NRA, if I go to the Capitol building with my pro-Second Amendment gear on, to them that's not political activism. But if they go up there and wander around the Capitol naked and engage in some really disgusting behavior, to them that's political activism. Am I going to step on some toes with this video? Probably so, but maybe their toes need to be stepped on. Here's the truth of the matter. We live in a world that can be very dangerous. In the United States, despite what they'll try to tell you, it's relatively safe. Yes, we have some attacks from domestic terrorists. Yes, we have some attacks from foreign terrorists. But we'll put a stop to it. And our hippies, they'll be off doing something else. Say, hey, somebody ought to do something. Guess what? It's your turn. Batter up. Oh, shit. Well, glad I got a backup plan, because it's useless to depend on y'all. People don't like to hear that, but that's the truth. We have a bunch of people screaming for legislation, and they don't even know what the hell they want. They don't know anything about the subject. Furthermore, what's even worse is they refuse to educate themselves on the subject. They say they want to mandate background checks. We've had those for years. If you're a convicted felon that has not had his rights restored or her rights restored, you cannot legally own a firearm. If you have a domestic abuse charge, even a misdemeanor, you cannot be in possession or own a firearm. Simple as that. If you are mentally incompetent, there's a courtroom procedure for this. You cannot own a firearm. If you've been diagnosed with a mental illness, you cannot, under federal law, own a firearm. Just that simple. Unless you've been given a clean bill of health, if you're mentally ill, you cannot own one. That came from the Gun Control Act of 1968. It's been around a while. The training they want to mandate, okay? I'm all for training. It's what I do for a living. The state of Florida, to obtain a permit to legally carry a gun in public, with the exception of hunting or fishing, you have to have mandated, documented training. Most likely, this will be done by an NRA instructor. In some cases, it may be done by a law enforcement instructor. Because the same ones that are out here protesting the NRA and saying, oh, we're unfair, and people keep giving money to the NRA, these are also the same ones who are out there bad-mouthing our law enforcement, who are doing the best damn job they can do. They're human beings, not Superman. You know, the training issue, hey, I'm all for it. But in Florida, we mandate hunter safety if you were born after 1975 to obtain a hunting license. We have mandated training in this state. Now, the truth of the matter is, I think you ought to seek out more training than a concealed weapons class, and I think you ought to seek out more training than a basic hunter safety course. That's my opinion. I also think you ought to practice with your gun on a regular basis. I know that's not feasible for some people. I know there's a bunch of guns that were purchased, loaded, stuck in a nightstand drawer, and that's where they'll stay until their owner dies of old age and somebody else retrieves it and says, hey, well, I got Grandpa's old gun. Hey, it's brand new. It's never been fired. Okay? Simple fact of the matter. The NRA has led in training. It's one of the few certifications that you can get that is recognized in all 50 states and all U.S. territories. The NRA can go and sit down and send representatives to meet with our leadership in Washington or our state capitals and sit down with them eyeball to eyeball and have a legitimate conversation. Protecting your Second Amendment rights. Now also, what a lot of people don't realize is the NRA does a lot of work with youth programs. They do a lot of work with public safety. Wait a minute. They didn't know that. Nobody told them that. Their propaganda machine didn't tell them that. All they told them was to go out and protest the NRA and write things bad-mouthing them on the internet. Well, bad news. I can get on the internet too. And I can state the facts for you. The truth of the matter is, your liberal hippies are anti-gun in most cases. And they're uneducated about firearms. They have never been around them. That's simply the truth of the matter. You don't like it? Well, maybe you ought to find something out about them. Do more than sit on the internet in your mama's basement. So while the NRA is proactive in moving ahead, teaching safety with the firearms, our liberals are wallowing in their own ignorance. Whenever I tell them, hey, this is the statute that says you cannot do this or you can do this, they want to act like I'm the ignorant one. Well, I've even had some of them go so far as tell me I needed to get an education. I've got a pretty damn good one. Probably the equivalent or better than most of them have. So, here's the thing. You want to seek out competent training. You want to seek out knowledgeable people who know about firearms. I'm going to tell you this. My opinion is support the NRA. That's my opinion. A lot of your liberal hippies, I'm going to tell you this. You don't know a damn thing. My door's always open, always willing to schedule a class. If you're embarrassed to tell your liberal hippie friends, hey, I went to a concealed weapons class, give me a call. Hell, I'll do them in private with you. I do one-on-one classes all the time. You'll probably learn something. And you'll find out that a firearm is like any other inanimate object. It does not do anything that somebody does not do to it. There's one sitting in my truck right now. There's actually several of them sitting in there. Guess what? They're not going to move on their own. They're not going to go off on their own. They're going to sit there until somebody picks it up and does something with it, for good or bad. It's no more different than a rock or any other object. Simple truth of the matter. Later on.